and welcome to the Behavior Education Connection, the podcast that works to connect the world of behavior analysis and the world of education. We focus on topics important to behavior analysts who work in the public schools and those who support them. Join us and spend time gaining insights and ideas as our host talks with fellow behavior analysts as well as other experts in the field. Hello again, and welcome to another episode of the Behavior Education Connection. I am Selena Layden, and I am your host today, and I am super excited to have my guest with me, Lauren Vetere. Hi, Lauren.
Hi, Selena. Thanks so much for having me.
I'm so glad you're here. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get into our topic for the day?
Sure. Like Selena said, hello, everyone. My name is Lauren Vetere. I am a Board Certified Behavior Analyst, and I currently work at Virginia Commonwealth University at the Autism Center for Excellence, also known as ACE. And I've previously worked in a public school setting. I was a division-wide autism and behavior specialist, and my job was to support all special education programs in the 10 schools there, elementary through high. And before that, I was an elementary special education teacher. And even before that, I was a training coordinator in a private organization that had a residential facility and also in-home support services.
Jack of all trades. It's great to have you, Lauren. I appreciate you joining us today. So today we're going to talk about something that you and I have talked about before, and we've actually presented on a little bit before, so I'm glad to have your perspective today. We're talking about the importance of building relationships when we work in a school system. Let's jump right in and talk about why is it so important to build relationships with our colleagues?
Well, like you were saying, professional relationships are an essential component of what we do, especially as being a BCBA in a school setting. We cannot do this job alone. There are so many hands in the pot, and we need to effectively work with others to really provide the best services and supports for students. And it's not only working with fellow BCBAs, but also the internal and external stakeholders as well. So being aware that it's working with teachers and administrators, families and caregivers, outside service providers, and students, of course. So we need to effectively communicate with all of them. And when we have a meaningful and authentic relationship, we can really make sure all the supports are in place to provide the best education and the best services for our students.
I would just add to, and you've heard me say this so many times, Lauren, so I'm sorry I'm repeating myself to you, but one of the things that I learned really early on in my career in working in schools is that as a behavior analyst, typically we don't have a lot of authority in schools, right? Like we don't tend to hire and fire people. We may get to sit on the interview panel for teachers, but we don't make those final decisions about who's hired, who stays. We may or may not even get to have influence on their evaluations, those kinds of things. And so because we don't have any real authority behind us, we still have a lot of responsibility though, right? Like our job is to make sure that students are doing well and having positive outcomes. And typically we're not the ones who are implementing plans or implementing services directly.
Right.
So we have little to no authority, but lots of responsibility. And so how do we actually accomplish our task? And I always felt that it's because it's through building these relationships. We have to have positive relationships with people, or we're not going to accomplish much. Because at the end of the day, we leave the classroom and the teacher is there by herself, him or herself, and they may or may not implement what we want them to implement.
Exactly. Yes.
So that's another reason I think that these professional relationships are just so key to the work that we do. So then the next question comes in of, if they are so important, how do we go about building this? We want to start off on the right foot. So how do we build positive professional relationships?
Well, I think often as BCBAs, we're so focused and we're so task oriented that
That's
sometimes
a
we
true
forget
statement. Yep.
Yep. Sometimes we forget to listen or even have those niceties. So just be cognizant of this. We don't want to be portrayed as cold. We want to create that positive back and forth and that positive rapport with those with our colleagues. And thinking about being approachable. When we walk in, you want people to come running towards us instead of running away from us.
Yeah.
And it goes without saying, but being nice, just coming in with that positive attitude, and that we're here to be successful and move forward. And it's also nice to bond over experiences. So we're all in the trenches together. So we've all had those rough days where you get in your car and you just sit there for a second because it was some day. And we can bond over that piece and we can really model what we're doing. So build that collaboration through that experience, and through that work together.
Yeah, I'm sure we've talked about this, but I will tell you some of the teams that I worked the best with over time were the ones that we started off in a really,
Mhm.
really unhappy IEP meeting, or a student that just was really, really, really having a hard time and the team really didn't have any idea what to do. And we had a few rough days at the beginning that we had to work through. I feel like, I guess the silver lining in going through those experiences is you can bond over them. Um, because I think at the end of the day, the team then knows that you're there and you're going to support them.
Absolutely.
And that's what they want. They want support. And so you need to be able to be that person who can support them. Of course, in a way that makes sense for our role, but that,
Mhm.
we're not just coming in saying, oh, you did bad things and that's why this happened, but coming in and saying, oh, let's look at what happened and think about how we can make this better for everybody.
Absolutely. And I think that brings up a great point of pairing yourself well.
Right.
So, when you're asked to come in, you're usually coming in on not the best of days for
Not a good day. Yeah.
there's
Things have
usually
gone wrong.
Yes, yes. There's usually a challenging situation. There's probably a crisis, or interventions are just not as successful as we want them. And it's important for people to know that you're here to help and not critique and judge them, that you're not going to ask of them something that you wouldn't do, or be willing to do. And I think it's important to affirm and validate how they're feeling, and that you have that common goal and you're working for the same outcomes. Really position yourself as that reinforcer. And that's the easiest way to build that understanding and create those professional relationships.
Yeah, it's hard because sometimes we come in and you're right, we are task-oriented people in general.
Mhm.
And we
Yes.
come in and we want to sit down and figure out what the problem is and start our preliminary assessment so we can figure out our assessment plan and all of this stuff. But sometimes when we come in, what the team needs is just to vent for a few seconds. They
Yes.
just need to say, it's really rough right now. And I think it's important to take the time and acknowledge, I know you're having a really hard time right now.
Mhm.
Um, we don't need to dwell on it forever, but yes, it's hard. And I get that. And I'm hoping that by me being here and us doing this together, it won't be so hard tomorrow.
Right. Right. And sometimes just coming in with a game plan, they're perhaps not there yet because they've just experienced, something difficult and challenging. So you need to take that second to reset and refocus, affirm and validate so that you can start with kind of that clean slate moving forward.
Yeah. And then the other thing that you said that I really love, and it sounds so simple, but it's so true, is just be nice.
Mhm.
Sometimes we just have to say, I'm really happy to see you and I'm happy to meet you and I'm glad I'm here. Even if we're not. we
Right.
we just need to be nice to each other.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think when you have kind of those niceties in place, even establishing what your routines look like and your group norms, so that when you come in, it's predictable and consistent and positive. So when
Right.
you walk in the door, it's not something that is nerve wracking or they don't know what's coming. So set up what that schedule looks like. What does your coaching schedule consist of? And then keep that communication going. Communication is invaluable to building relationships. And just make sure you're transparent with that communication. What you're saying in person is what you would say on an email, is what you would say in writing.
The other thing that those are great points, and I agree with you. Communication is absolutely key. The other thing that struck me that you said was about pairing yourself. And one of the things when I worked in the school system that I always made sure I did was I would visit classrooms when there was really no reason to visit a classroom.
Mhm.
Like, I just want to come in and see you. I just want to see how your classroom is going. You're not in trouble, because there was always this perception of when, because I worked in the central office building, when central office came, that meant somebody was in trouble. And I didn't want that to be the impression of when I showed up. I wanted the impression to be, oh, well, Selena's here. So if I have questions, I can ask her, or if I need something, we can talk about it, but I'm not in trouble because she's here.
Right. Absolutely.
Um, so I think the key takeaway is it's just really important to try to start off on the right foot with teams. They are the ones who are dealing with the student or with the situation that's going on, and they're the ones who are going to continue working with that student after you fade out, after you leave. But you also may be working with this team over and over and over again. And so starting off on the right foot can just set you up for so much more success. So, Lauren, do you have any final thoughts on the topic before we sign off today?
I just think final thoughts would be understanding your own communication skills. I think self awareness is very important and can make a big difference. It's all about that approach. That delivery is essential. So make sure that you are delivering your content in an approachable way, in a positive way, in a collaborative way. And teams by itself are not going to automatically collaborate. We need to set the stage and put that infrastructure in place so all the voices are heard, all viewpoints are kept in mind. And I think another point with that is to get the buy-in, you really want to know when to use common language and when to use technical terms. And
Excellent. Very good point.
that's important to know to build that collaboration and build that relationship there. So you want to approach a situation in a way that all can understand. And I think probably the final point would be to be present and authentic. When you're going into the classroom, there could be 1,000 other things going on in your life, but put that phone down, close your computer, don't check your email, be there and be present so you can hear staff's concerns and input, and then you can model the best practices in the hope to continue this positive relationship.
All wonderful points. Lauren, thank you so much for joining me today. I really enjoyed the conversation. I think it was a lot of good points today. So thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Selena. Goodbye, everyone.
And I hope to see everybody on our next episode. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Behavior Education Connection. Join us next time for another great conversation about behavior analysis in the schools. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on an episode. Sending out a special thanks to the Virginia Department of Education for supporting our work. We look forward to connecting with you all again soon.